മീറ്റിംഗ് യൂട്യൂബിലും ലഭ്യമാണ്. യൂട്യൂബിൽ ലൈവായിട്ട് അത് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളതും പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഓർമ്മിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. സാറ ആൻറ്റി, സ്വാഗതം.
എല്ലാവർക്കും good morning to everyone. Especially this morning, we are blessed to have a panel discussion team. And
സ്വാഗതം.
കേൾക്കാമോ അച്ഛാ?
കേൾക്കാം.
I just thank God for this opportunity God has given to us to have a panel discussion this morning. And I welcome all of the members who are watching this through zoom.com and YouTube. And also special thanks to Dr. Maman and Dr. Nainan for taking their busy time, and also, they are busy all the time, but taking time for us. And especially we are a blessed church, having so much resources within among ourselves, and also willing to help in time, especially a time great need like this. Just welcome Sajiyachan and Anuvachan and everybody one more time, and hope this presentation will help all of us. Thank you.
താങ്ക് യു. ഈ മനോഹരമായ പ്രഭാതത്തിൽ നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരുമിച്ച് ചേർന്ന് ദൈവത്തെ സ്തുതിക്കുവാനും, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഈ ഒരു വലിയ പ്രതിസന്ധിയുടെ മധ്യത്തിൽ കൊറോണ വൈറസ് ലോകത്തെ മുഴുവൻ ഇങ്ങനെ കാർന്നു തിന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ ഒരു പ്രത്യേകമായ സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ നമുക്ക് ഒന്നിച്ചു ചേർന്ന് എന്താണ് ഈ ഒരു കൊറോണ വൈറസിൻ്റെ എഫക്ട്സ് എന്തെല്ലാമാണ്, അതെങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയാണ് നമ്മളെ അഫക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി എല്ലാം നമുക്ക് ഒത്തിരി ഡൗട്ട്സ് ഉണ്ട്. ഒത്തിരി ഇൻഫർമേഷൻസ് നമുക്ക് ഗ്യാദർ ചെയ്യാൻ പലയിടങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് സാധിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഗവൺമെൻറ് തന്നെ, WHO, CDC തുടങ്ങിയ എല്ലാ സംഘടനകളും നമുക്ക് വേണ്ട എല്ലാ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻസും നമുക്ക് നൽകുന്നുണ്ട്. എന്നാൽ നമുക്ക് തന്നെ പല ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് നമ്മുടെ മനസ്സിൽ കാണും. നമ്മുടെ തന്നെ ഒരു സ്പെഷ്യൽ കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റിൽ ഹൗ വി ഹാവ് ടു മൂവ് ഫോർവേഡ്, ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റിയെല്ലാം നമുക്ക് ഒത്തിരി ഡൗട്ട്സ് ഉണ്ട്. ഈ ഡൗട്ട്സ് നമ്മൾ വ്യാജ പ്രചരണങ്ങൾ കേട്ട് അതിനകത്ത് നമ്മൾ കുരുങ്ങിപ്പോകാതെ നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും ബെസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഇൻഫർമേഷൻസ് തരാനും നമ്മളെ ഗൈഡ് ചെയ്യാനും പറ്റിയ ആളുകൾ നമ്മുടെ ഇടവകയിലുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് ഓർത്ത് ദൈവത്തെ സ്തുതിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇമ്മാനുവേൽ ഇടവക ഏറ്റവും വലിയൊരു ബ്ലെസ്സഡ് ചേർച്ചാണ്. സാർ ആൻറ്റി പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മുടെ ഇടവകയിൽ തന്നെ വലിയൊരു റിസോഴ്സാണ് നമുക്കുള്ളത്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് മെഡിക്കൽ ഫീൽഡിൽ നമുക്ക് വളരെയേറെ നേഴ്സസ് ഉണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ ഒട്ടുമിക്ക ഫാമിലിയിൽ നിന്നും ഒരാളെങ്കിലും നഴ്സിംഗ് ഫീൽഡിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്നവരാണ്. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ഹെൽത്ത് ഫീൽഡിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നവരാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഇടവകയിലെ ഏറിയ പങ്കാളികളും. അപ്പം അത്തരത്തിൽ ഈ ഒരു സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ ആളുകളെല്ലാം വളരെ നന്നായി കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് ഓർത്ത് ഞാൻ ദൈവത്തെ സ്തുതിക്കുന്നു. എന്നാൽ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ നിലയിൽ ഏറ്റവും ഹൈ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആളുകളും ഈ മെഡിക്കൽ ഫീൽഡിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളുകൾ തന്നെയാണ്. കാരണം പല തരത്തിലുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് നമ്മളെല്ലാം മീഡിയയിലൂടെയൊക്കെ കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. സെൽഫ് പ്രൊട്ടക്റ്റീവ് മെഷേഴ്സ് എടുക്കാനായിട്ട് പലപ്പോഴും കഴിയാതെ പോകുന്ന ഒരു സാഹചര്യം, കാരണം അതിനുള്ള എക്യുപ്മെന്റ്സ് അവൈലബിൾ അല്ലാത്തൊരു സാഹചര്യം. അത് തന്നെയല്ല ഈ COVID-19 ബാധിതരായിട്ടുള്ള ആളുകളോടുള്ള ഡയറക്റ്റ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ വരുന്നതും ഡയറക്റ്റ് ഇന്ററാക്ഷൻ വരുന്നതും എല്ലാം ഡോക്ടേഴ്സ്, നഴ്സസ്, അതുപോലെ ഹെൽത്ത് മേഖലയിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ആളുകളാണ്. അപ്പം അത്തരത്തിലൊക്കെ വളരെയധികം ചലഞ്ചസും റിസ്ക്കും ഉള്ള ഒരു ജോബാണ് ഇവരെല്ലാം എടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത് എന്നുള്ളത് കൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഇടവകയായിട്ട് നമുക്കൊരു സ്പെഷ്യൽ റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ട്. ഇവരെ ഓർത്ത് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുക. അതല്ലാതെ നമുക്ക് മറ്റൊന്നും സാധ്യമല്ല. നമുക്ക് മറ്റൊരു തരത്തിൽ അവരെ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് സാധിക്കില്ല. നമുക്കൊരു മോറൽ സപ്പോർട്ട് അവർക്ക് നൽകുക. യെസ്, വി ആർ വിത്ത് യു, എസ്പെഷ്യലി ഇൻ ദിസ് ക്രൈസിസ് സിറ്റുവേഷൻ, വി ആർ വിത്ത് യു എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് തന്നെ, അവർക്ക് വേണ്ടി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നത് തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയൊരു കാര്യമാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങൾ എല്ലാവരും അവരെ ഓർത്ത് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ഇടവക അവരെ ഓർത്ത് അഭിമാനം കൊള്ളുകയും അവർക്ക് വേണ്ടി പ്രത്യേകമായി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്ന് ഞാൻ ഈ സമയത്ത് ഓർമ്മിപ്പിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. വചനത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ പല ഇതിന്റെ ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആസ്പെക്ട്സ് ഒക്കെ നമ്മൾ ഈ ദിവസങ്ങളിലെ ലെൻറ്റ് പ്രേയറിലൊക്കെ കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. എന്നാൽ നമുക്ക് കൃത്യമായി എന്താണ് ഈ വിഷയം എന്നുള്ളതിനെ പറ്റി അവതരിപ്പിക്കാനായിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ ഇടവകയിൽ തന്നെയുള്ള ഏറ്റവും റിസോഴ്സ്ഫുൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള രണ്ടാളുകളാണ് ഇന്ന് നമ്മോടൊപ്പം ഇരിക്കുന്നത്. ഡോക്ടർ ജോർജ് മാമൻ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും പരിചിതനാണ്, നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ എപ്പോഴും അവൈലബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരാളാണ്. എന്നാൽ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ വില പലപ്പോഴും നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല എന്നുള്ളത് തന്നെയാണ് ഏറ്റവും പ്രയാസമുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യം. അദ്ദേഹം കേരളത്തിൽ ഇന്ത്യയിൽ വളർന്നു. അതിനുശേഷം ട്രിവാൻഡ്രം മെഡിക്കൽ കോളേജിൽ റെസിഡൻസി കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്തതിനു ശേഷം സൗത്ത് ബാൾട്ടിമോർ ജനറൽ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ വരികയും അവിടെ നിന്ന് കാർഡിയോളജിയിൽ പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ടുള്ള ബിരുദമൊക്കെ കരസ്ഥമാക്കുകയും സെന്റ് ലൂക്സ് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലും ടെക്സസ് ഹാർട്ട് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ടിലും ഒക്കെ ആയി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുകയും ഒക്കെ ചെയ്തു. വളരെ അനുഗ്രഹീതനായ ഒരു കാർഡിയോളജിസ്റ്റ് ആണ് ഡോക്ടർ ജോർജ് മാമൻ. ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലൊക്കെ ചെല്ലുമ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ വലിയ പടമൊക്കെ കാണുമ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾക്കും അഭിമാനം തോന്നും. ഹോസ്പിറ്റൽ വിസിറ്റിനൊക്കെ ചെല്ലുമ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ ഒരു മെമ്പറാണ് എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ഒത്തിരി അഭിമാനമാണ്. പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ജോർജ് മാമനെ വളരെ വളരെ ഹൃദ്യമായി നിങ്ങളുടെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ ഈ ഒരു പാനൽ ഡിസ്കഷനിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ഡോക്ടർ മാത്യൂസ് നയനാൻ റിനുവിനെ പറ്റി പറയുമ്പം എനിക്ക് ഒത്തിരി സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. കാരണം ഒരു ബ്രദറിനെ പോലെയാണ് എപ്പോഴും റിനുവിനോട് സംസാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് തോന്നാറുള്ളത്. കാരണം ഏറ്റവും അനുഗ്രഹീതമായി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന, കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം ഓർത്തഡോക്സ് സഭയിലെ അഭിവന്യ അപ്രേം തിരുമേനി എന്നെ സന്ദർശിക്കാനായിട്ട് വന്നപ്പോൾ അപ്രേം തിരുമേനി പറഞ്ഞു, നിങ്ങളുടെ ഇടവകാംഗമാണ് എൻ്റെ ഡോക്ടർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് ഒത്തിരി സന്തോഷം തോന്നി. എന്നിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു കാര്യം, ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഡോക്ടേഴ്സ് ഒക്കെ നിങ്ങളുടെ പള്ളിയിലുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളതിൽ എനിക്കും അഭിമാനം തോന്നുന്നു, അസൂയ തോന്നുന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. കാരണം ഇത്രയും അനുഗ്രഹീതരായി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ആളുകൾ. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ പല ആളുകളുടെയും സാക്ഷ്യം റിനുവിനെ പറ്റി ഞാൻ കേട്ടിട്ടുള്ളതും, അവരൊക്കെ പല ഇടങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് റിനു പോകുന്ന സ്ഥലങ്ങളിലേക്കൊക്കെ മാറി മാറി റിനുവിനെ തന്നെ ഡോക്ടറായി, പ്രൈമറി മെഡിസിൻ ഡോക്ടറായിട്ട് മതി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് പുറകെ പോകുന്ന ഒരു കാഴ്ചയും കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതൊക്കെ വളരെ സന്തോഷകരമാണ്. ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ആളുകൾ നമ്മോടൊപ്പം ആയിരിക്കുന്നതിൽ ഏറെ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് റിനുവിനെയും ഈ ഒരു പാനൽ ഡിസ്കഷനിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഇന്ന് 66 ഫാമിലിയാണ് ഇന്ന് നമ്മോടൊപ്പം ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. 66 ഫാമിലി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മിനിമം 2 പേരെങ്കിലും വെച്ചുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് 100-ലേറെ ആളുകളുണ്ട് ഈ ഒരു പാനൽ ഡിസ്കഷനിൽ. പല ഇടങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് ആളുകൾ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഞാൻ ഇതിങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ഡാളസിൽ നിന്നൊക്കെ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന ആളുകളുണ്ട്. ഈശോ മാളികയിൽ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് സ്വാഗതം. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അങ്ങനെ പല ആളുകൾ പല ഇടങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് പങ്കുചേരുന്നുണ്ട്. എല്ലാവരോടുമുള്ള പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് സന്തോഷം അറിയിക്കുന്നു. എല്ലാവരെയും വളരെ ഹൃദ്യമായി സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുകയും ഈ ഒരു പാനൽ ഡിസ്കഷനിലേക്ക്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് സജിയച്ചൻ നമ്മോടൊപ്പം എപ്പോഴും ഉണ്ടല്ലോ, സജിയച്ചന്റെയും സാന്നിധ്യം നമുക്ക് അനുഗ്രഹമാണ്. സജിയച്ചനെയും പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ആമുഖ വാക്കുകൾ നിർത്തുന്നു. വേദപുസ്തകം നമുക്ക് തരുന്ന ഒരു ഉറപ്പ് മാത്രം ഞാൻ ആമുഖമായി ഒരു വാചകത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ് അവസാനിപ്പിക്കട്ടെ. വേദപുസ്തകം നമുക്ക് തരുന്നത്, കൂരിരുൾ താഴ്വരയിലൂടെ ഞാൻ നടന്നു പോയാലും ഞാനൊരു അനർത്ഥവും ഭയപ്പെടുകയില്ല, നീ എന്നോട് കൂടെ ഉണ്ടല്ലോ. ഈ ഒരു ബലമാണ്, ഈ ഒരു ആശ്വാസവാക്കാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഏറ്റവും പ്രതിസന്ധി ഘട്ടങ്ങളിൽ നമുക്ക് ഉള്ളത്. നമ്മൾ ഏറ്റവും ആദ്യം പഠിക്കുന്ന സങ്കീർത്തനാണ് 23-ാം സങ്കീർത്തനം. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് അത് ഏറ്റവും സങ്കടം ഘട്ടങ്ങളിലും നമുക്ക് തന്നെ നേരിടാനായിട്ട് പ്രയാസമുള്ള ഘട്ടങ്ങളിലും ഒക്കെ ഈ ഒരു വചനം നമുക്ക് ബലം നൽകുന്നതാണ്. യഹോവ നമ്മുടെ ഇടയനായിട്ടുണ്ട്, അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒന്നും ഭയപ്പെടാനില്ല. കൂരിരുളിന്റെ അനുഭവങ്ങളിലും കർത്താവിന്റെ സാന്നിധ്യം നമുക്ക് ബലമായി തീരട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ അധികം സമയം ഇനിയും ചെലവാക്കാതെ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ജോർജ് മാമൻ ഡോക്ടറുടെ കയ്യിലേക്ക് ഞാൻ ഈ വീഡിയോ കൈമാറുന്നു. ഡോക്ടർ ജോർജ് മാമൻ.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
First, let me thank Anuachan and Saji Achan for putting together this online video chat to discuss the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on our daily lives and how it has drastically affected our social, economic, and spiritual lives. Not since the Spanish pandemic flu of 1918, the world would see such a crisis of this magnitude. There was no cure for the pandemic then, and as of yet, there is no cure for the infection now. This is causing a lot of anxiety and anguish. I hope to discuss today how to understand and process all the information that's out there and help alleviate some of the anxiety by channeling the fear productively to reduce the risk of infection in the weeks ahead. By this time, you probably have an idea about this infection, and that primarily affects the lung. It has caused massive infections in countries like China, Spain, Italy, and the number of infected now runs in the hundreds of thousands, and many people have died from it. Here in the USA, we have been a little slow to get the seriousness of it. Now, of course, we have increased the number of test kits available. We are ramping up hospital capacity. We are procuring ventilators and protective equipment such as face mask and other gear. However, the infection is already high in places like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and close to home in cities like New Orleans. Coronavirus is a highly infectious virus. Older people are more seriously affected, but young people are not spared either. Patients with medical problems such as heart disease, chronic lung disease, diabetes, and kidney disease are more likely to end up with serious complications requiring ICU care as well as ventilator support. It is therefore extremely important for everybody to heed medical advice and try to slow the spread of this infection. Dr. Nainan will be getting into this in more detail, but washing hands, social distancing, trying not to touch your face when you're out in public so that you don't transmit by touch are all important. In the city of Houston, the medical authorities and the mayor has advised everybody to stay home for now and to go out only for essential activities such as going to the doctor or to the grocery store or pharmacy. By reducing the travel, we hope to contain this infection. Nobody knows how long this pandemic will last, but some of the measures that were put in place recently will be needed probably for several weeks, if not months. In a totalitarian society like China, they were able to enforce quarantine and was able to contain the disease somewhat. Democracies like Italy and Spain were slower to respond and they ended up having massive infection and many deaths. So in South Korea, on the other hand, it's also a democracy. They started testing people very early and isolated infected cases and was able to achieve some degree of control. As you can see, the success of containment and control depends on how effective the measures are going to be and how closely we follow them. India, the biggest democracy, has its own unique challenges. We all have loved ones there. My sister just left here and went there, and she's in a room quarantined, and she's not able to even get out of her room. And both her and her husbands are in quarantine and able to get out of the house. So those extreme measures hopefully will work there, because in a country like India where there's medical facilities, ventilators are scarce, it's extremely important to adhere to these measures to contain it. We hope that works. Unlike China, India is a democracy and success will depend on compliance rather than enforcement. As you have heard from national and local leaders, we in Houston are trying to flatten the curve. That means that we are trying to control the rate of infection so that the hospitals are able to manage the number of patients presenting to the emergency rooms without being overwhelmed in ICUs and lack of ventilators that will increase the death rate. So it's extremely important for us to cooperate and follow the very effective measures that are placed so we can have the infection to a manageable level. There's a tremendous amount of research going on in the background. Also, some medications such as hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and some viral agents are in trial to see if they are effective to combat the virus. Hopefully, we will have a remedy soon. I think I have pretty much said in general everything I need to say. We will have a panel discussion later on. Now I invite Renu to take over and talk about the COVID infection impact on seniors, and he will take it from now on. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Maman, for that introduction. Achin, for some reason, I wanted to put the PowerPoint up. Can you put the PowerPoint up on your side?
Sure.
I just want to welcome everybody to this panel discussion. Thank you, Achin, for giving me this opportunity to speak to the Senior Citizen Fellowship. Being a primary care physician is very important right now because we're on the front lines of dealing with a lot of the coronavirus infections and multiple questions. So I really appreciate the time that he's given me to kind of speak to you on behalf of some of the prevention strategies that we can do to kind of help slow down the progression of the virus infections as well as, disease states. So let me begin by, everybody should know by now, my name is Matthew Snyden. I'm a primary care physician for Memorial Hermann Medical Group. Been there for several years in Sugar Land. And I just want to kind of take this time again to talk about the prevention strategies in the setting of this coronavirus pandemic. So, I'm sorry, it's just kind of slowing down the. So what do we know so far? After Dr. Maamon's excellent introduction, we know how devastating the coronavirus has been in our country and globally. Today, as I checked the CNN news report, I heard that 102,000 plus have been infected with the virus. And globally, almost close to 600,000. But there is some good news in this. Most of the cases that we're hearing about are mild when we compare the overall numbers. And only about 15 to 20% develop a more severe course. But we also have to remember that there are several high-risk populations here. One group in particular is the 60-year-old and plus population. The second group, or the second high-risk group that we need to look at is patients with diabetes, lung disease, heart disease, kidney disease, things that Dr. Maamon had mentioned in his introduction. But I also want to mention that there are several chronic medical conditions that we don't think about. Patients who suffer from any autoimmune illnesses, such as rheumatoid arthritis, things of that nature, are considered chronic in my opinion. And when we look at those kind of situations, if a patient does feel that they have a chronic medical illness, be careful, treat it as such and act as such. But I want to talk about ways to decrease the spread. And there's 4 main ways that I want to speak about today. Number 1, hand washing. Number 2, social distancing. Number 3, cleaning surfaces. And number 4, staying at home. When we look at things, we want to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. And the best thing I can do is I wanted to provide a demonstration. Let me see if I can get into this. I may not be able to get into this. If Achin, can you double click that and see if you can open it up? Is the video playing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a commercial probably for the beginning, but we'll have Dr. Gupta come on for a second. Achin, can everybody see that video?
No, we can't see the video. Just the
Can't
sound.
see the video?
Only the sound. That's all.
Okay.
There you go. We can see it now.
Okay, thank you. And I want to really focus on, if we can get this video to work, on how he is washing his hands. Many of us, we have heard that, wash your hands, but many of us do not focus on the style or even how to concentrate on washing his hands or washing one's hands. So I kind of want to have you guys take a close look, if we can get this video to play, on how he's washing his hands.
Fingers like this, and then also turn your hands over. Don't forget the backs of your hands. You often forget them. Right? Get it really well. And then I'll actually get underneath your fingertips here and the nails a little bit to make sure you clean underneath there. And then you got to get the thumbs. Thumbs are really important. Sing the happy birthday song twice to yourself, and that usually will do it. And then I just sort of get the soap off my hands here. And there. And then here's the key. Before you turn the water off, dry your hands and use the same paper towel. Turn off the water. You don't contaminate yourself.
We can get back to the slides. So I wanted to kind of focus on that hand washing technique that he used. He, number one, really tried to focus in on the back of the hands as well as the front of the hands, focused on getting underneath the nails and focusing on the thumbs. The second thing I wanted to focus on, he did not turn off the sink water with his hands after washing the hands. He actually used a paper towel. Many of us, when we say we're washing our hands, we're just quickly washing the hands, not waiting the 20 seconds, not singing the happy birthday song twice. So I really want to kind of have patients or people focus on how they are washing their hands. So that's the first technique that I really want to kind of focus on, because this is probably the most important thing that we can do after coming in from the outside or public places or wherever it may be. Second thing is I want to talk about social distancing. What is social distancing? Well, we're basically limiting the exposure to sick people and the general public. We know that the virus spreads between people in close contact. What is close contact? Within at least 6 feet. We can take this a little bit more and say that it's within 6 feet and prolonged exposure. So I don't want people to get worried that I spent some time with somebody who was possibly COVID positive and I may get the virus. Let's talk about prolonged exposure as well as the distance between the patient as well, the person as well as the person who in question. Why we think this is because the virus is spread through respiratory droplets. And this is usually produced when infected people cough or sneeze. And these droplets land inside the mouths of noses or people nearby. That is why the 6 feet rule is in effect. The third thing I want to focus in on, cleaning surfaces. We want to wipe down surfaces as much as possible, counters, tabletops, and doorknobs. We want to clean with household cleaners, bleach, or alcohol solutions with at least 70% alcohol. They say that we should hand sanitize with at least 60% alcohol. And I want to keep that in mind here as we talk about other cleaning products we want to use with 70% alcohol. The virus has been shown to live on surfaces for extended periods of time. And I don't want to get people scared or frightened by this, but in an aerosolized situation, that means outside the body, the virus can live up to 3 hours. The other materials that the virus can live on is there's suggestion that the virus can live on cardboard anywhere from 1 to 24 hours, stainless steel and plastic for up to 3 days. There's some other suggestions that they found some virus contaminant in cruise ships up to 17 days later. This is very important when we talk about cleaning surfaces. One place that a lot of people forget to sanitize is their cell phones. This is very important because these surfaces can become very contaminated very quickly, placing it on countertops and so forth. And what do we do with our phones? We place it right next to our face most of the time, thereby introducing the infection close to our nasal passages in our mouth. So this is very important that we sanitize the phone when we come home. The other thing I want to talk about is staying home as much as possible. Please try to avoid going to public places if you can. If you must go, we make suggestions such as this. If we're going to the store, plan ahead, have a list. The reason we say this is we don't want you to linger in the store for too many minutes and stand around and possibly get exposed. If you can get to the store and they're wiping down the cart, this is an excellent protocol that they're doing. I know in the HEB where we live, they're already doing that, but in some cases they are not. Wipe down the cart. They may have sanitizing solution there, or you may bring your own. The next thing is buy enough food for 2 weeks. If you can remember to do that, sometimes this is very difficult. And then last but not least, limit touching items before buying it. I know many of us like to feel our produce, our vegetables, our fruits, but if you can limit the amount of times that you're touching your fruits and vegetables, this will be helpful. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes this particulate lives in cardboard and plastic for many hours and possibly days. So remember this as you're picking up that next gallon of milk. I want to share a story. The first case in New Jersey of the coronavirus was a man who went to a bowling alley and shook his friend's hand. He ended up developing coronavirus simply from the handshake, as well as his friend as well too. So something as simple as a handshake can pass on the virus. So I want to really emphasize that to a lot of people. In this day and age, we have a lot of parents who say, I don't want to bother my son or daughter. I don't want to bother my kids because they're too busy, but I need to go get a gallon of milk, or I need to go to the store and get some bread. These are things that we need to limit. We can call our younger children to go and get these products for us without having to rush to the store. Even though it seems like we're just going to the store for a quick 10 minutes, those 10 minutes can lead to exposure and infection. So please, I was talking to Achin a few days ago, and he said that a lot of our senior citizens are not necessarily heeding what's going on or heeding the warnings, but somehow just kind of saying, oh, it's only for a quick drive. I'm tired of sitting in the house. I need to get out. And we understand that. But if there's anything that we as younger parishioners of the church can do for our senior citizens, please ask. We are ready to help. And so I really want to emphasize about going to public places where the coronavirus may be. Symptom management. Okay, so let's say now that I have possibly been exposed and I'm developing symptoms. The first thing you need to do is call your doctor. I cannot emphasize how important it is to have a good relationship with your primary care physician or any doctor that you see, because that's how I get with a lot of phone calls from my patients. This last week, I'm not seeing a number of patients in the clinic, but I'm getting a number of phone calls, texts, messages from patients who may have fever, cough, or shortness of breath. And I want to emphasize that it's very difficult to see the differences between influenza or flu and coronavirus. So it may not be coronavirus. It may simply be the flu or a cold or cough. So you really need to kind of just call your MD for guidance on this. In many cases, we can manage it with symptomatic care. I talked to a lot of patients over the week, and basically fluids, rest, over-the-counter medications, such as, as long as your chronic medical illnesses do not exclude the use of such things as Dayquil, NyQuil, Alka-Seltzer, cold and sinus, Tylenol. I know there's a lot of talk in the media about using ibuprofen. And for right now, the studies are still conflicting whether or not ibuprofen can be used. But as of right now, I am telling my patients and giving them direction not to use ibuprofen until we get a little bit more information about if it does worsen the coronavirus infections. So Tylenol is a fine medication as long as there's no, like I said, chronic medical problems that are excluding the use of it. And of course, if symptoms get worse, call 911. What are worsening symptoms? Increased shortness of breath, confusion, sustained fevers over a certain amount that are causing dehydration, and such as the confusion that I mentioned above, blue lips, or anything that seems like the patient is going to be clinically unstable. Call 911. Don't waste the time to call a family member to see what we need to do. That is why emergency services are there for these matters, to take patients in if they need to. And, we have hospitals and ER set up right now in Houston. We still have a lot of beds available for patients. And so I don't want people to be scared about going to the ER if they need to. Stress management. I know with all of this COVID and coronavirus, people are scared, people are stressed out. But I still ask patients to get fresh air, but still maintain that social distance. I know people say, I don't want to go to the park, I don't want to go outside. But if we're maintaining social distance, if you want to glove up, if you want to wear a mask, go get some fresh air. Still maintain some level of exercise or activities. You can do this in your own house, stretching, yoga. I know a lot of people do krishi and gardening. Do that if you have time and energy, do that. Call at least one friend a day. I know many of us, we say we don't have time to call somebody. Email, text. In this day of what we have on the internet, we can FaceTime people, we can Zoom people, we can text people. Do that to get the stress off of one's back. Read. And if I said nothing else, read the Bible. This is very important, because God's word is even more important today than it ever has been in this time that we live in. Meditation and prayer. This is so important at this time, is meditate and take the time to speak with God one-on-one. Families are spending a lot more time together. Make it quality time. Spend time together. Don't pick and fight with each other about, what should have been done or what has been done. Use it as quality time. Get to know your spouse, get to know your children. It's very difficult when you're cooped in the house all day. It's easy to get nitpicky with one another. And I want to leave with the final item here, saying social distancing is not social isolation. You don't have to isolate yourself. We are still part of a community, a wonderful community in the Markham Church, as you can tell with this Zoom presentation and this panel discussion that we're doing. We still have people around us that we can see. I know they're talking about limiting the number of people in one setting, so we can still get together, but we have to be careful. But it's not social isolation. And relying on God. Most of us, we have great faith in God, and I want to leave with that point of, if God gets you to it, he will get you through it. That is one of the main things that I've heard time and time again, that God is with us. The verse that I picked here to leave with is Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you. I will help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. As I said, the Bible is so important right now with with what we need to kind of look to instead of all the things that are out there on the media. So with that, I want to close. Again, I want to thank Achin for giving me this, Achin's to give me this opportunity. And I want to also thank Dr. Maman again for his wonderful introduction. And we'll open up the panel for any kind of questions that people may have.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. Any doubts or anything?
Please, and there is no question that is silly. If people have a question, ask it. If we don't know the answer, Dr. Maman or I, we can always research it and get back with you. I know there's a lot of questions being asked in the media and so forth, but if there's an answer that we can help you with, please feel free to ask.
Hi, this is Anoop. I had a question.
Hello?
Dr. Nayan.
Everyone. Dr. Nanak, can you hear me?
Dr. Nayan.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, today morning while I was taking the breakfast, I heard, I read it in the iPad telling that our president is telling this is not nothing to worry, this is just a flu. What's your explanation about that?
Dr. Maman, I'll let you speak first.
Did you hear the question?
I believe the question, Dr. Maman, if you didn't hear it, is basically
please.
saying that the president doesn't believe that this is a major illness.
Well, as I kind of mentioned it, one of the reasons we were slow in responding and only coming to the conflict and messages, political leaders versus medical leaders. Why he said that, but we could have been much further ahead in this process if everybody was serious about it. We had almost 3 months head start when it first started in China. We could have done things.
Just one second. Let me just interrupt. Kindly mute everyone's phone or video so that everyone can hear this.
I mentioned the country South Korea because South Korea is a democracy, unlike China, where they cannot. They were able to have the test kits ready when first it was reported in China. They ramped up the production of everything, so they were able to identify infected people in much larger numbers and isolate them. So they were able to control it. For us, we have already now high rate of infection in New York and many other cities, including our nearby city of New Orleans, which is clearly worrisome. And so we're kind of behind a little bit. So hopefully we can ramp up. At least in Houston, we seem to be able to do that, and that's why what Dr. Nayan spoke about, the social distancing and all those other measures he mentioned are so important at this point, because everybody get tired of sitting at home and kind of make our own reason why we should do that and this, and why it's not going to, nothing is going to happen if I go there and to this place or that place. And there were even some weddings that happened in the last couple of weeks which shouldn't have been, but hopefully people are coming to their senses and take it very seriously, because even though there is only 15 to 20% really get sick, 15 to 20% of a large population is a whole lot of people. The hospitals cannot manage that, so there'll be a lot of people getting very sick and dying, like it happened in Italy and Spain if we don't take it seriously. So my answer is basically that we have to take, rather than blame people, or I'm not putting any blame on anybody, but we have to go forward from now on and do the best we can to contain this. Yeah, so any response?
Yeah, ഒരു ചോദ്യം എനിക്ക് ചോദിക്കാനുണ്ട്. ഡോക്ടർ മാമനോ ഡോക്ടർ നയനാനോ ആരാന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ പറയണം. നമുക്ക് ലങ്സിനെയാണ് ഇത് ബാധിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാകുന്നു, പക്ഷെങ്കിൽ ഹാർട്ട് അറ്റാക്ക് മൂലം മരിക്കുന്നു എന്ന് കേൾക്കുന്നു. അതിലെന്താണ് അതിന് വാസ്തവം? അങ്ങനെ എന്തോ അതിന് വല്ല ക്ലാരിഫിക്കേഷൻ ഉണ്ടോ?
അതെ, ബിക്കോസ് പ്രായമായവർക്ക് ഹാർട്ട് ഡിസീസ്, അണ്ടർലൈങ് ഹാർട്ട് ഡിസീസ് ഉള്ള ഒത്തിരി പേരുണ്ട്. നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇന്ത്യൻ അല്ല, for everybody, when you are above 60, your chance of having a heart disease is quite there. So when you get an infection like this on top of a blocked arteries, it puts a lot of stress on the heart, because the oxygen level in the lung, oxygen level in the blood goes down because the lungs are not working properly. So it causes the heart underlying heart disease to show up. And it's not that it causes a heart disease per se. It has been reported that heart gets directly affected with this virus called myocarditis, but it's rare. Most people die from heart attacks from pre-existing heart condition, because we are all walking around. We don't know whether we have severe heart disease or not for sure. Some people get chest pain and they find out. Others who walk around in that age group, many of them have heart disease, and a disease like this causing a severe strain on the heart will precipitate and cause a heart attack. But it is not a heart attack directly caused by the virus. It's a secondary effect, or because of what we call hypoxia, oxygen deprivation from the lung infection.
Thank you.
I agree with Dr. Maman. I think there's still some studies out there that have suggested that the virus does something to the lungs and the heart tissue, but still that is inconclusive. The other day I share a story. A patient called me and said she's having nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. And so she said, Nainan, I think I have COVID. So by the time we called her back, the husband picked up the phone and I said, so how is she feeling? What is our next step? She said, I had to take her to the hospital and she suffered a massive heart attack. So going back to the whole thing about if symptoms are worsening, don't just think it's COVID. It may be, but it may be something else, and don't take these things lightly. Going back to the whole statement about, is this a hoax? Is it real? To me, I don't know where 600,000 people come from, but it sounds like it's not a hoax to me. And unfortunately, we have to take heed. In my opinion, being careful is always on the right side. We can say, let's not be careful and then get the infection. Let's be careful. What do we have to lose here? For the next few weeks, we just practice these safety measures, these precautions. What are we going to lose? Nothing. But we have something to lose if we don't heed these precautions. We get an infection, we end up in the hospital. Why take the chance? Heed the media, heed the advice of place people like KP George and staying in place. We need to kind of practice these safety measures.
I second that. One of the ways the virus affects the heart, causing heart attack, is it's not it has been not proven, but one of the theories is that it causes inflammation of the plaque, which is the cholesterol buildup inside the arteries, and causes it to rupture. And we know that's one of the ways heart attacks happen. So these are the possibilities, but it rarely causes heart attack in young people who have normal arteries, and occasionally has caused direct inflammation. There were 2 cases reported from China, and there may be more coming. With this is slow. This is spreading around, and the medical information is slowly coming out. So we'll know more about it as time goes by, but we have to do everything to prevent this from overwhelming us.
Thank you, Doctor.
So, any other question?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
a question. So I heard that Dr. Naina, somebody mentioned about the hydrochloroquine is being used for COVID. So, is it really available in our pharmacy in Houston? Because yesterday a patient who was like, she was taking for something else like SLE or the rheumatoid arthritis, and this has not been available in the market. So how they are doing it, or are they only saving it for COVID now?
You know, the one thing I'll tell you about these medications that have been touted as the miracle drugs for COVID. Number one, the studies are still inconclusive. There was a Chinese study or a French study that came out with a very small panel, and there was another Chinese study that came out with the hydroxychloroquinone and chloroquinone. We've used these drugs for malaria, the chloroquinone, and we've also used the hydroxychloroquinone for lupus and autoimmune issues. The problem is we have to think about it. If everyone on this panel went and told their doc, I want to go ahead and fill a prescription, then that leaves some of the patients with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus without these medications. Yeah. So it's not my opinion to prescribe these medications for prophylaxis. You know, most of us, as I said, will have mild symptoms at best, and it's not worth the side effect of these medications. You know, there's side effects with these medications, myalgias, other issues that can happen by taking these medications. If you guys read the news, there was a couple in, I believe it was Arizona, that saw chloroquinone in their fish cleaning products. So the husband and wife decided to mix it in water and drink it. The husband died and the wife is in critical condition. So we have to be careful about what is in the media. And I have to also kind of say, you know, we most of us have either a family member or a spouse or someone in the medical field. You know, let's take all the information that we're getting, dissect it and see, is this pertinent for me? And then move forward with asking it. And so right now, I'm not recommending anything from the outpatient sector. I do have a couple of patients that are inpatient right now that some of the infectious disease and pulmonologists have suggested that they have used this drug. But the question mark is, you know, is it even working? But, you know, we're trying anything at this point to get people better.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the physicians in the hospitals and ICUs may use it because they have seen these studies which were not what we call real scientific studies. They are type of trial and error studies. So it's by no means certain if it does anything at all. And so, well, it is like Renu said, it's causing a lot of shortage for people who really need it. And so we should not refrain from using that. Also, another thing you cannot get now is azithromycin, you know, because people are holding them because there was a report somewhere that it might be helpful. You know, again, we have to wait and see what happens with the studies. And of course, in extreme situations, the physicians are trying it, but no word on whether it's effective or not yet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another thing I would say is that we have a lot of misinformation going around on the internet. You know, I get all these crazy stories and theories about, you know, in WhatsApp and other places coming from India and elsewhere. So you got to be very careful of looking at this and be very, very skeptical, you know, because you need to check with your physician or other sites such as CDC or some of the more reputable sites to get your information. Don't get it on the internet otherwise. You know, it can be very misleading and, like Dr. Nainan said, you know, lead to tragic results like what happened in Arizona.
How long is the recovery process? 2 to 3 weeks?
Well, this recovery process is variable. You know, many young people will have disease that may last a few days. You know, actually my son, who is a gastroenterologist in New York, he got the virus. He said he felt like the flu, and he couldn't taste or smell for a while, and he stayed in this apartment and recovered, and he's back. They need him back because he's considered immune now, and they went back to work. So that's the younger people, the general population who will recover. But people who are very old with all these comorbid or other conditions such as chronic lung disease and other things that Dr. Tynan mentioned, they can get very sick, and you don't need to tell you. You're seeing it every day in the news. So people once and they get these pneumonias that are very, very unique and easily, it can be diagnosed by CT scans and X-rays, and they can go on for a long time. But those are complications. But typically, the virus infection lasts several days up to a couple of weeks, and if they're going to recover uneventfully. But it's still a very, very serious disease. For the people who get the complications, it's really can be devastating.
Doctor, I have another question for you. I heard as a message from somebody is quote, Journal of Virology, April 1991, page 1916. All we need to do, we beat coronavirus, we need to take more of an alkaline foods that are above the above pH level of the virus. Is there any sense making that? Is a Virology, April 1991 journal.
Yeah, it is not clearly correct because it's in the there's at least there is no scientific proof that really works. I mean, there are many stories circulating around, and there is one that says if you drink hot liquids every so often, it will kill the virus, and I mean, some of them are quite crazy. I don't know of anything that says if you drink, eat alkaline foods and liquids, it's going to prevent coronavirus.
This morning, before I joined the Zoom, I read an article about myths debunked about coronavirus. And a few of these myths are, if I take a hot shower, hot bath, it will help defeat the coronavirus. Nothing in the study suggests that that's the case. Taking lots of vitamin C. Taking a multivitamin is great. Taking an additional vitamin C is fine, but loading up on too much vitamin C can be dangerous. And so there's a lot of things that are out there in the media, as Dr. Maamin said, that, are there. Again, focus on the main things. Number one, limit your exposure, as we mentioned. And number two, health. Get the rest that we need. If you start feeling ill, you start feeling tired, push the fluids, and get the rest that you need. I think your body, God has created such an instrument in us that basically can defeat a lot of these viruses on its own. We don't need to take extra medications most of the time. It's these secondary infections that I tell you that take people apart. If you get the viral infection and then develop a pneumonia, develop a bronchitis, things of that nature may require more medication. But in mild cases, your body can handle it. But most of us don't get the rest that we need, and as Dr. Maamin said about his son, the lack of taste and the lack of smell, when someone is sick, they don't want to eat or drink. And this is even more particular as in my patient population in the males. The females tend to do well. They're, as I say, sometimes my wife is much smarter than me. But I think males, we just need to make sure we push the fluids. And I think dehydration, especially in the setting of diarrhea and not having the senses to want to drink or eat, can be devastating. So, keeping the immune system at high energy, high functioning is what we need to focus on. Alkaline fluids and things like that. There's a lot of studies out there that say even drinking alkaline fluids on a daily basis help buffer some of the oxidant or the inflammatory components in our body. This still, is not proven. Those are the patients who want to drink alkaline water and don't want to exercise. Well, you have to look at it from that perspective. What is going to be more rewarding is going to do the exercise. We've proven that. So these are things that, like I said, as we go along, we're going to hear a lot more, media and people saying, well, that worked for me, this worked for me. But just be careful on what you're taking in as advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would stick to CDC recommendations or local hospital sites, if you have access to that, and stay away from all these noise on the side, which where there's a lot of them, so hopefully that will work.
ഡോക്ടർ നിങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും പറഞ്ഞത് മാതിരി ഈ മീഡിയയിലൂടെ വാട്സപ്പിലൂടെ ഒരുപാട് അഡ്വൈസുകളും ഒരുപാട് മരുന്നുകളെ കുറിച്ചും ഒക്കെ വരുന്നുണ്ട്. എനിക്ക് ഇന്നലെ ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് കിട്ടിയത് ചൈനയിൽ നിന്നൊരു ഡോക്ടർ പറയുന്നു, നമ്മള് ദിവസം ഒരു 4-5 പ്രാവശ്യം ഉപ്പുവെള്ളം കഫം കൊണ്ടാൽ നല്ലതായിരിക്കും, അത് വളരെ എഫക്റ്റീവ് ആണെന്നുള്ളൊരു മെസ്സേജ് ഇന്നലെ വന്നു. ഞാനത് പലർക്കും അയച്ചു കൊടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു. കാരണം അത് ലോകത്ത് എവിടെ ചെന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഡോക്ടർമാർ പറയുന്നത് ഉപ്പുവെള്ളം കഫക്കൊള്ളണം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു മരുന്നാണ്, സിമ്പിളാണ്. ഞാൻ പലർക്കും അത് മെസ്സേജ് ഫോർവേഡ് ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്തു. അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് എന്താ ഡോക്ടർക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത്?
ഉപ്പുവെള്ളം നല്ലതാണ്, തൊണ്ടയ്ക്ക് ഒരു സുഖം പോലെ തോന്നും അത് കഴിയുമ്പോൾ. ബിക്കോസ് അത് പണ്ടുകാലത്തെ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു റെമഡി ആണല്ലോ. That gives you some relief for the congestion there just temporarily, but it's not going to do anything for the virus.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Is symptomatic treatment. Yeah, you may feel better by gargling with the saline, or salt water, and that's true. And of course, if you feel for 5 minutes good after that, go for it. But it's not going to cure the virus.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, doctors. I had a question. So I understand that we don't have a cure, right, for this virus. So, all this quarantining will help to flatten the curve. But let's say that after 2 months, if we open up again, even if we just have 2 or 3 patients who are sick, again, the curve would rise up, right? Serious. So I'm not seeing a permanent solution.
The flattening the curve is to reduce the infection so our hospitals can handle the influx of patients who are going to get sick. On the other hand, it's going to prolong the duration of the infection. Like places where nothing is done, all of a sudden millions of people will get suddenly sick, a lot will die. The purpose of this is to reduce the rate of rise so that the hospital, we have only a number of ICU beds. Beyond that, people are going to be laying outside and dying, unable to breathe. That happened in Italy. You may have seen it on news channel. So we are trying to avoid that, hundreds of thousands of people dying, especially in a large country like in US or India, for that matter. So yeah, that's true. We are going to prolong the duration of infection by flattening the curve, because more and more people will get infected. But hopefully the hope is that by that time we will have a drug that might be useful to contain it, or we could have a vaccine, even though that looks like several months or year and a half away. And also there are other things that are being tried, like if somebody is already over it, like my son, they can donate a serum or blood, which you can take antibodies and give it to somebody who is very sick and dying, and or hopefully before that, so it can be effective. Other things, and there are a lot of research going on, so we don't know what will come out of it, but right now that's the best we can do.
Okay.
I want to also chime in on that as well too. Just like Dr. Maman said, we don't want to overwhelm the health system. That's the number one thing that we don't want to do. If in Italy and places like Spain, they have to make tough decisions. When you have a 80-year-old on a ventilator and a 30-year-old comes in with respiratory distress, and you have one ventilator, we don't want to make that decision. We don't want to say, let's take the 80-year-old off because they had a good life and that's it. What if that was my father? What if that was my grandfather? I don't want to make that decision. And so we want to keep people healthy if we can. And I have to say that some of these deaths that are happening in the United States and overseas, probably some of this is due to the fact that there was too much of a population that just basically influxed into the health system. When we talk about ICU, most ICUs may have anywhere from 10 to 20 beds. which is usually one-to-one nursing, when we over inundate the health system, you may have, double that, triple that amount in the ICU on a ventilator, and you have maybe 1 or 2 nurses that can see 2 to 3 patients. It's not appropriate. But with stuff that we must do in a pandemic in this situation, which means what? Errors will happen. It's human nature. Human errors will happen. And so we're trying to prevent that, by telling patients not to get exposed and infected. And so that is why it's important. Flattening the curve is fantastic. Trying to find a cure is great. We still don't have a cure for the flu. When patients say, well, Tamiflu cured my flu. No, Tamiflu reduces the duration of your flu. It doesn't cure it. It's your body that basically cures it. So in the same token, we look at coronavirus, that's probably what we're looking at is a vaccine that will expose your body to seeing it and thereby, help with the duration and the symptomatology of it. So, right now, what we're trying to do is decrease the amount so the health system has time to catch up with personal protective equipment, masks. Even in my clinic, I don't have an N95 mask. Why? Because we don't have a supply of it. And so we're leaving that for our doctors in the ER and so forth that absolutely need it, who we know they're coming across patients with COVID. So these are the things that we need to kind of focus on is the less amount of people that we have to treat, the more time we have to build up our health system so that we can take care of people. And by the way, I want to say, for a senior citizen, you look fantastic.
Oh, me? Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm hoping to stay that way.
Hi, doctor. This is Mini Raji. I have a question. Like, once a person gets this disease and gets cured, do they develop any immunity to this disease? Any studies are done on that?
Once you get, I'm sorry, I missed that. Once you get.
Once a person gets this disease and got cured, do they develop any immunity to this disease? Are there any studies on that?
Well, there are no large studies, but from what has happened in China, and that was the earliest place where the infection started. So they're seeing a short-term immunity and presence of, antibodies start building up and showing up in the blood after 10 days. So you develop antibodies. How long the immunity lasts is unclear at this point. They think it is at least a few months. Influenza virus immunity only lasts less than a year. So that's why we have to get a vaccine every year. So it's a virus that's similar. It's not similar, but it is another virus. So we know that there is some short-term immunity. How long it will last, time will tell, because we haven't reached the year yet. People will be monitoring that. Yeah, there is some short-term immunity. That's when I said about my son, because they wanted him back in there because he is one who cannot, at least hopefully, get an infection in the near future. So he's in the hospital working overtime because some of the older people want to be a little more careful. Exposure, like Dr. Nayanan said, long exposure increases your risk of infection, whether it's healthcare personnel or regular people.
And the other thing is, as far as immunity is concerned, there was a year, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, that I had type A flu in the beginning of April, recovered, waited a few days, and then secondarily got type B flu in the same month. And I received my flu vaccination. Now, the severity of it wasn't bad enough for me to go to the hospital or anything. So the question mark is, is this only one particular coronavirus strain that we're looking at? Maybe. There also could be some other strains that are affecting people. What we do know is that some patients are getting very mild illnesses. And when we study those patients, we need to figure out why. Why did they get such a mild illness versus the other individual over there who got a severe illness? And that's what we're studying as far as their biological response to the virus. Yesterday, some good news to share with a lot of people is that they had a patient in South Korea that was well over 100 years old. I think, I can't remember exactly how old, 101, 102, something like that. And another person in Italy that was 102 that got the coronavirus and recovered. So that's good news. And when they actually did the serology testing for this lady in Italy, they found out that she actually had antibodies to the Spanish flu. And so, imagine Spanish flu was 1918. It is now 2020. She still has antibodies to the Spanish flu. So as Dr. Mammon said, we don't know how long these antibodies will be in our system and once we develop it or if we develop it. So, right now the studies are still inconclusive. And when we discuss biology, so many patients present in so many different ways. But I think it's taking the patients who are asymptomatic or showing mild illnesses and using that same studying their blood to see what can we do in other patients who develop more of a severe illness or reaction.
Thank you.
നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വിരോധമില്ല, ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഓൾറെഡി 2 ചോദ്യം ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഒരു ചോദ്യം കൂടെ ചോദിക്കുന്നതിന് വിരോധമില്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ചോദ്യം കൂടെ ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കാം. നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിലെ സ്റ്റഡി അല്ലെ ഇവിടുത്തെ ന്യൂസ് കേൾക്കുന്നതനുസരിച്ച് നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ 50 വയസ്സിൽ കൂടുതലുള്ള ആൾക്കാർക്ക് കേരളത്തിൽ വളരെ ചുരുക്കമായിട്ടും, അതേസമയത്ത് യുണൈറ്റഡ് സ്റ്റേറ്റിൽ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ കേൾക്കുന്ന സ്റ്റഡി ന്യൂസുകൾ അനുസരിച്ച് നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ യങ്സ്റ്റേഴ്സിന് ഒത്തിരി കൂടുതൽ പ്രോബ്ലങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകുന്നതായിട്ട് കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. ഈവൻ 30 ആൻഡ് എബവ് കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പം ഇവിടെ എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അങ്ങനെ സംഭവിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് എന്തെങ്കിലും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു ഐഡിയ ഉണ്ടോ? ഇവിടെ ഈ സ്മോക്കിങ്ങിന്റെ പ്രോബ്ലമോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഡ്രഗിന്റെ പ്രോബ്ലമോ അതുകൊണ്ടോ എന്തായിരിക്കാം? നിങ്ങൾക്കൊരു ഐഡിയ ഉണ്ടോ എന്നൊന്ന് ഞാനല്ല.
Like Dr. Naina said, there is something out there saying there could be 2 strains of this type of virus, and again, it's not conclusive. It may be a little speculation there. But on the other hand, India, for some reason, obviously we are being very careful in Kerala and to the extreme level, like in China, which is a communist country. They are enforcing it because, we are such a populous country that if something like this happens, can be devastating. So basically, what's happening there is, if there is a slightly different strain which could be affecting some countries, like if you look at the map of where India, some of the Southeast Asian countries, and all that have less of an infection rate. So nobody knows for why it is, because India is pretty open and anybody can go. I mean, until recently, people could have gone in and out. A lot of people from China. In Kerala, of course, they were very much proactive, and people, I have heard comments about how they are conducting it. And I know from my sister's experience, they are extremely proactive. They're calling her every couple of days and also inquiring if they have enough food to eat, because they're not supposed to go out of their condo. And she has to stay in one room, and nobody else can go into that room for 14 days. So it'll be over hopefully pretty soon. So things like that do work. How long they can sustain it, we don't know. So why it happens, again, data coming out of India, I don't know how, people are getting infected, younger people too, but they may be not very symptomatic, and they may not even be reporting them. People are, it all depends on how well everybody get tested. I don't know, we have enough testing capability there or not. But whenever, I know at least when they are suspected, they are being tested.
Yeah, I want to add to that, and I agree with Dr. Mammen's sentiment on that, is a couple of things. Number one, look at our population. In Kerala, I don't know the exact amount, but the population of the 30-year-old population may be less than the United States. So we have to look at it in comparison to numbers. Do we have more of that population here? The second thing I want to also express in this is Kerala and other countries like South Korea, China, they have dealt with, other viruses, SARS, and also chikungunya and things of that nature. So people there are a lot more, they're ready to heed the warnings that are out there. Stay at home, don't do this, don't do that. People are ready to heed those warnings because they have seen the tragedies of these illnesses. I think in the States, the problem is we have not really been exposed to this type of pandemic before. And so many of us, well, we don't listen. and we continue to do what we're not supposed to do, and we go out and we get exposed. And so I think that's one thing, especially the younger population. I have to, the older population I give a lot of applause to because they are heeding the warnings, but the younger population does not. If you looked at the news reports from the last week, people are on spring break at the beach, hanging out and doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And we cannot pull in those measures like China did, basically having a gun and saying, stay indoors. This is America. We're not going to be able to enforce it like that. But we're doing our best that we can. The second thing I want to also say is asymptomatic spread. In 30-year-olds, they may have friends that they're getting together with that have coronavirus and they don't know it. Meanwhile, this individual over here that got the infection is a smoker, has asthma, or some other medical problem that they're dealing with. Even though their age is 30 plus, they may end up getting a severe course of the illness. So this virus, we're seeing a lot more older patients get affected more seriously, but do not forget, we have children that are infected with it. We have people in their 30s and 40s that are getting infected with it. So the virus does not discriminate based on age. We're just putting it out there for our senior citizens to realize that if they do get it, they may be having more of a severe illness or reaction to the virus. So we want to be careful. But the asymptomatic spread is very important that we pay attention
to. My wife here wants to tell everybody that my sister does not have the infection. She went into quarantine because she went from United States to India to Kerala. So they put her in a room. So, but they're doing a good job over there. Hopefully it'll work out favorably for them. Because we have so many loved ones there, and anything that happens like that there would solve a lot of concern for us. So let's pray for that as well.
Any more questions?
I have a question, Achin. This is Binu. So Dr. Maamin and Dr. Nayanan, thanks for doing this. Very informative, very helpful. The question is, would you be able to share some information about how this virus affects people with diabetes and why are they considered in the high risk category?
We'll have Dr. Nayanan answer that.
Sure. Diabetes as a whole, regardless of your control or non-control, puts people at a high risk because your body has to deal with the insulin resistance as well as the sugar issues that are going on in the body. So we always put our diabetics at a high risk because some patients will get neuropathy. So, when we talk about diabetics who come in with, heart disease, sometimes they may never present with chest pressure, chest pain, or anything like that. And simply because they're diabetic, they may have neuropathy that prevents them from having those type of symptoms. In the same way with the viral infection, we know that, our diabetics are at high risk because their body is just taxed and stressed with dealing with the diabetes and the sugar control. So when we have diabetics, I always take an extra measure with my diabetics. When they come into the office, I'm always looking at any kind of symptoms that they may be having and treating accordingly. I give them express directions, on these things. The other thing is when patients do get an infection, they may notice their sugar rises. That may be the body's response to taking care of the infection as well too. But diabetics in general, we put them in a separate category of high risk because, they can get an infection, and because of the infection, they can end up getting more of a severe complication. Many of you guys have probably been to your doctor's office under the age of 65, and your doctor may have asked you, did you get your pneumonia shot? Did you get your flu shot? Why is that? We recommend those vaccinations because we know that diabetics may have a more severe reaction. So we want to prevent those by giving them the vaccination, regardless of being over 60 or 65. So that is why it's so important as a diabetic that A, you keep your sugars under control best you can. Number two, frequent follow-ups with your doctor, 3 to 4 months, check that sugar, and three, maintaining a lifestyle that keeps the blood sugar under control, with diet and exercise and making sure you're doing the best that you can. At the end of the day, your doctor can tell you what to do, but you have to do it.
Okay, thank you.
With this, when the patient with the diabetes get this infection, usually, it stresses the system and the sugar goes up. It creates a dysfunctional metabolism that really adds to the problem. So for diabetic control, like Dr. Nayanan said, is extremely important. And those people, when they get infection, are more likely to have complications.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
I do have a question. What is the guidelines if a healthcare worker who exposed to corona positive cases without a PPE?
What was the last part? Without a
PPE. Without a mask. I mean mask.
And is this health worker, like, how many days ago was this person exposed to the corona?
It's been a week, going to be a week, but patient came with a syncope episode and no fever or cough. After 2 days, patient started cough and fever. That's how we checked, and this was. So 2 or 3 shift nurses and other workers, they exposed to that patient. So what is the guideline, CDC guideline?
I mean, right now, even in New York, a lot of these, exposed healthcare workers, unfortunately, are called in to come back to the hospital if they have, exposures, mild illness. And so they're continuing to work because they are over inundated with the disease. Here, if your hospital allows, different hospitals have different protocols, but what we're asking patients to do is, again, possibly quarantine so that they don't expose other people. Unfortunately, in that situation, it sounds like, things spun out of control too fast. You had a healthcare worker who was possibly positive, and then coming across other staff members that were positive. So far, none of the hospital staff members have been positive, correct? Or have we tested them?
Not tested us yet, because they asked us to come for work because it is confirmed yesterday. The result is confirmed yesterday. So still we are going for work with a surgical mask.
Yeah. Dr. Maman, I don't know in your hospital what the protocol would be, but, I think we're probably quarantining some of those staff members who are possibly exposed and have come across a positive exposure.
Yeah, I think it depends on the need. Like in Houston, I think the ideal thing would be to go with that 14-day isolation, and of course, testing it by itself is not 100%. It's only about 80% sensitive. So that's why being a negative negative tested individuals still may have the infection about 20% of the time. So that's why they sometimes recommend repeat testing, but we don't have enough testing kits available as of yet. So going forward, hopefully everybody, especially healthcare personnel, can get tested, and we can have a more scientific approach, so to speak. Also, the need is in New York is such that if these people don't go to work and help out, things are going to get even much worse. In Houston, hopefully we'll have a better way of dealing with it. There's no, the person did cough in front of your press, in front of you may make a difference. Otherwise, it's just quarantine yourself, and after 14 days you didn't have the infection, then you probably don't have it. And then it could be an asymptomatic mild infection. Then that can only be found out by testing. With its limitations, some of these, you would think that if you get tested and if it's negative, you're 100%, but that's not the case. Because there are a few people who may get test negative and later turn out to be positive.
Nothing also, thank you, Dr. Maman, nothing also beats common sense. If you have symptoms that are developing and you work in a high-level unit such as an ICU or on a cancer floor at MD Anderson or something of that nature, let's use common sense. You were exposed and now you're having symptoms. You may need to talk to your head nurse or your HR department and tell them, listen, I don't want to put patients at risk, and I feel uncomfortable working with them. I mean, of course, employers may be having different strategies and different, protocols. In our clinic right now, any patient who comes in with a cough, right now we're actually even excluding patients with fever and any COVID symptoms from even entering the clinic. We screen every person, including physicians, medical staff coming into the office with temperature and questions. But even then, before we have any patients with symptoms, we'd automatically give them a face mask to put on, or surgical mask to put on if they have a cough. The second thing is we have split our clinic in two. In the morning, only well patients. We don't see any sick patients in the morning. And in the afternoon is when we see more of the sick clientele. So we're trying to do what we need to do to kind of separate healthy and well patients from more of the sick clientele. And your hospital may have some guidelines on how they're doing that. But of course, that is going to be hospital based. And we're learning day by day. If you turn on the media, 2 days ago, some of the same things we heard are changing for today. So we have to kind of stay in tuned as far as guidelines, and the CDC website is continually changing. But one thing is for sure, limiting your exposures and limiting those around you. So we have to continue to practice that measure.
I second that wholeheartedly. In my hospital, I go in there and they check my temperature and ask me a couple of questions. And give me a wristband to wear for that day, and they go in. And even in our office, what we do is we check everybody's temperature. As being a cardiologist office, we don't expect people to come in complaining of cough and fever, but asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic people can walk in for other reasons. So we test them, and if somebody has a cough and they say it's allergy, I've been sneezing, we'll give them a mask. That's more important than you wearing a mask, actually. And mask is not a replacement for all other preventive measures. And if you look at people in China and Japan and South Korea, you have seen them for years walking around with masks. Did that prevent it from happening there? Because there are so many other things involved in that. So masks can be useful in particular situations, mostly in hospital settings. When you go into patients' rooms, is a justification, at least with the supplies we have, to wear a mask. But just walking around mask all the time, it can be counterproductive, because we tend to get a false sense of security. The mask gets wet, it's no longer effective, So mask is meant to be used for a one-time use. So you go into the patient's room, you use it to come back and throw it away. But with the shortage that we have right now, they are modifying that recommendation, because there's not enough masks to go around. And people are hoarding it and keeping it and buying it so a lot of a lot of behavior like that is going around as well. That's not very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Sajichan? Sajichan, vote of thanks.
വളരെ ഇൻഫോർമേറ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള വിവരങ്ങളായിരുന്നു പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട രണ്ട് ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിൽ നിന്ന് ലഭിച്ചത്. വളരെ അനുഗ്രഹകരമായിരുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് വളരെ ആശങ്കകളോടെ ഓരോ കാര്യങ്ങളെയും നോക്കിക്കാണുന്ന ഈ സമയത്ത് പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ഡോക്ടേഴ്സ് അവരുടെ തിരക്കുള്ള സമയങ്ങൾ മാറ്റിവെച്ച് തന്നെ നമുക്ക് ഇടവകയായിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് സീനിയർ ഫെലോഷിപ്പിന്റെ നാമത്തിൽ അത് പങ്കെടുക്കുകയും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഏറ്റവും വിലയേറിയ നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങളും ഉപദേശങ്ങളും എങ്ങനെയാകണം പിന്നെ നേരിടേണ്ടതിനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള വിവരങ്ങൾ നിന്നതിൽ വളരെ കടപ്പെട്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചുള്ള ഈ സ്നേഹവും സന്തോഷവും നന്ദിയും എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ ഈ ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിന്റെ പേരിൽ അറിയിക്കുക. താങ്ക് യു.
Okay, thank you. നമുക്ക് ഇത്രയും ഭംഗിയായി ഐ തിങ്ക് ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഒരു കണക്ക് നോക്കിയാൽ ഇപ്പോൾ 82 വരെ വന്നിരുന്നു. നമുക്ക് പ്ലസ് യൂട്യൂബിൽ കാണുന്ന ആളുകൾ ധാരാളം ഉണ്ട്. ഒത്തിരിയേറെ ആളുകൾക്ക് ഈ ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും അനുഗ്രഹമായിരിക്കും എന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു വാല്യുബിൾ ടൈം ആൻഡ് യുവർ വിസ്ഡം അത് നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടി ഈ സൊസൈറ്റിക്ക് വേണ്ടി തന്നതിലുള്ള പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ടുള്ള സന്തോഷം അറിയിക്കുന്നു. ഡോക്ടർ ജോർജ് മാമിനോടും ഡോക്ടർ മാത്യു നയനോടുമുള്ള പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ടുള്ള സന്തോഷം, സ്നേഹം അറിയിക്കുന്നു. നിങ്ങളെ ദൈവം കൂടുതൽ അനുഗ്രഹിക്കട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് നമ്മുടെ ഇടവകയിലും സമൂഹത്തിലുള്ള ഹെൽത്ത് കെയർ വർക്കേഴ്സിനെ എല്ലാവരെയും ഓർത്ത് നമുക്ക് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാം. അവരെയൊക്കെ ദൈവം അനുഗ്രഹിക്കട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് ഓർക്കുകയും ചെയ്യാം. ഇന്ന് ഇതിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത എല്ലാവരോടുമുള്ള, ഇത് കേൾക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവരോടുമുള്ള പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ടുള്ള സന്തോഷം അറിയിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ ചുരുക്കുന്നു. നമുക്ക് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാം. May I request Isho Malayakil Uncle to kindly lead us in prayer.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, ഞങ്ങളെ സ്നേഹിക്കുന്ന വാഴ്ത്തപ്പെട്ട സ്വർഗ്ഗപിതാവേ, ഈ സാറ്റർഡേ രാവിലെ കർത്താവെ അടിയങ്ങൾക്ക് സീനിയർ ഫെലോഷിപ്പായിട്ട് കർത്താവെ ഈ സെമിനാറിൽ കർത്താവ് കൂടി വരുന്നതിനും ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വാല്യുബിളായിട്ടുള്ള പല മെസ്സേജുകൾ കേൾക്കുന്നതിനും വളരെ സജഷൻസ് കേൾക്കുന്നതിനും ഡോക്ടർമാരിൽ നിന്ന് ലഭിക്കുന്നതിന് കൃപയ്ക്കായ സ്തോത്രം കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഈ ലോകത്തിൽ കർത്താവെ 176 കൺട്രികളിലും കർത്താവെ ഈ പാൻഡമിക് സിറ്റുവേഷൻ കടന്നു പോകുന്ന സമയത്ത് കർത്താവെ ജീവനുള്ള ദേശത്ത് കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങൾ ജീവനുള്ള കൂടി കർത്താവെ നിൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ വന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ മുട്ടുമടക്കുന്നതിനും കർത്താവെ ചെയ്ത ഈ അവസരത്തിനായി സ്തോത്രം കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങൾ ഓരോരുത്തരും ചെയ്യേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യാതെ പോകുന്നതുകൊണ്ടുണ്ടാകുന്ന അപകടങ്ങളാണെന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കി കർത്താവെ നിന്നോട് ഞങ്ങൾ ഓരോ ദിവസവും അടുത്ത് ജീവിക്കുന്നവരായി ഇരിപ്പാൻ ഇടയാക്കി തരണം കർത്താവെ. കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ വിവിധ ഭാഗങ്ങളിലുള്ള ഓരോ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുകൾ അനുഭവിക്കുന്നതിനും കർത്താവ് കഷ്ടത്തിൽ അനുഭവിക്കുന്ന ഓരോരുത്തരെയും തിരിച്ചു വിളിക്കുന്ന കർത്താവെ. കർത്താവെ മരണം വഴിയായി ആയിരങ്ങൾ മരണമടഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന കർത്താവ് ഒരു കുടുംബത്തിൽ തന്നെ കർത്താവെ വളരെയധികം ആളുകൾ കർത്താവെ ജീവനെ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് കർത്താവെ അവരുടെ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവർ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു പോയിട്ട് ദുഃഖിച്ച് കഴിയുന്ന കർത്താവെ അവർക്ക് ആശ്വാസവും സമാധാനവും നീ തന്നെ നൽകിക്കൊടുക്കുന്ന കർത്താവെ. ഈ മഹാമാരിക്ക് കർത്താവെ നീ ഒരു അന്ത്യം വരുത്തുന്ന കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങൾ അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. ഞങ്ങളുടെ അപേക്ഷയെ ഉപേക്ഷിക്കരുത് കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ ജീവിതത്തെ ക്രമപ്പെടുത്തി കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങൾ ഓരോ ദിവസം മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകുവാൻ ഞങ്ങളെ പഠിപ്പിക്കണം. ഇതുമൂലം ഞങ്ങളെ പഠിപ്പിക്കണം കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ ആവശ്യങ്ങൾ ഓരോന്നും തിരുവനന്തപുരം കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ആരാധനയ്ക്ക് പോകാനോ മറ്റോ ഒരു സൗകര്യമില്ലാതെ ഞങ്ങൾ മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകുന്ന കർത്താവെ ഇതിനൊരു എത്രയും വേഗം ഒരു പരിഹാരം കണ്ട് കർത്താവെ നിന്റെ നാമത്തെ മഹത്വപ്പെടുത്തി ഞങ്ങൾ മുമ്പോട്ട് ജീവിക്കുവാൻ ഞങ്ങളെ ഇടയാക്കി തക്കണം കർത്താവെ. കർത്താവെ രോഗികളെ പരിചരിക്കുന്നതായ ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിനെയും കർത്താവെ അവരുമായി സമ്പർക്കത്തിന് നേഴ്സസിനെയും എല്ലാവിധ ആൾക്കാരെയും ഞങ്ങൾ തിരുസന്നിൽ വെക്കുന്ന കർത്താവെ അവരെ നീ താങ്ങിക്കൊള്ളണമേ, അവരെ നീ ശക്തിപ്പെടുത്തണമേ, ബലപ്പെടുത്തണമേ കർത്താവെ. നിന്റെ ചെറിയൻ കീഴ് മുദ്രയിട്ടവരെ കാത്തു പരിപാലിച്ച് ആവത്തുന്നവരെ സൂക്ഷിച്ചു കൊള്ളണേ കർത്താവെ. കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ആവശ്യങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ തിരുവൽപ്പിക്കത്ത് കർത്താവെ. ഓരോ ആവശ്യങ്ങളും നീ തന്നെ നിറവേറ്റി ഞങ്ങളെ ഓരോ ദിവസം മുമ്പോട്ട് വഴി നടത്തണ കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങളെ ബലപ്പെടുത്തണമേ, സീനിയേഴ്സിനെ ശക്തിപ്പെടുത്തണ കർത്താവെ. ആരോഗ്യവും സുഖം ഞങ്ങൾ തന്നിത്തരണ കർത്താവെ. ഇന്ന് ഈ മീറ്റിംഗ് ഉറപ്പെടുത്തിയ എല്ലാവരെയും നീ അനുഗ്രഹിക്കണ കർത്താവെ. ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിനെയും മറ്റെല്ലാവരെയും ഈ കൂടി വന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഓരോ തലവണയ്ക്കിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവരും തിരുസന്നിൽ വെക്കുന്ന കർത്താവെ. അച്ഛന്മാരെ രണ്ടുപേരെയും തിരുസന്നിൽ വെക്കുന്ന കുടുംബമായി ഞങ്ങൾ വെക്കുന്ന കർത്താവെ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഈ ആവശ്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം കർത്താവെ നീ നിവർത്തിച്ച് കർത്താവെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു സന്തോഷപ്രദമായ ദിവസം നീ പ്രദാനം ചെയ്തു തരണം കർത്താവെ. മാനവമോത്തോടത്തോട്ട് കർത്താവെ യേശുവിന്റെ നാമത്തെ ഉപേക്ഷിക്കുന്ന കൊണ്ട് കേൾക്കണമേ.
ആമേൻ. സ്വർഗസ്ഥനായ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പിതാവേ, തിരുനാമം പരിശുദ്ധമാക്കപ്പെടണമേ, തിരുരാജ്യം വരണമേ, തിരുവിഷ്ടം സ്വർഗത്തിലെ പോലെ ഭൂമിയിലുമാകണമേ. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ആവശ്യമുള്ള ആഹാരവും ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് തരണമേ. കടക്കാരോട് ഞങ്ങൾ ക്ഷമിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത് പോലെ കടങ്ങളും ദോഷങ്ങളും ഞങ്ങളോടും ക്ഷമിക്കണമേ. പരീക്ഷയിലേക്ക് ഞങ്ങളെ പ്രവേശിപ്പിക്കാതെ ദുഷ്ടങ്ങൾ ഞങ്ങളെ രക്ഷിച്ചുകൊള്ളണമേ. എന്തുകൊണ്ടെന്നാൽ രാജ്യവും ശക്തിയും മഹത്വവും എന്നേക്കും നിനക്കുള്ളതാവുന്നു. ആമേൻ. പിതൃപുത്ര പരിശുദ്ധാത്മാവാം ത്രിയേക ദൈവത്തിന്റെ കരുണകൾ, കൃപകൾ, ആശീർവാദം പ്രിയരെ നാം എല്ലാവരോടും നാം ഓർത്ത് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ച എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളോടുകൂടെയും വിശേഷാൽ നമ്മുടെ ഈ ലോകത്തിനെ ബാധിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ കൊറോണ വൈറസിനെതിരെ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ പ്രവർത്തകരോടുകൂടിയും ഇപ്പോഴും എന്നേക്കും ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുമാറാകട്ടെ. ആമേൻ.